Welcome back to XRP On Moon, the place where we dive deep into the most explosive, controversial, and highly discussed developments surrounding XRP and the future of global finance. If you've been following the crypto space lately, you already know things are heating up faster than ever before. But today's topic might just be one of the most attention-grabbing narratives we've seen in a long time. Claims and speculation surrounding the Ripple president allegedly confirming a future where XRP plays a central role in government adoption. Now, before jumping to conclusions, it's important to understand what's actually being said, what is being interpreted, and what remains unverified. Because in the crypto world, narratives move markets almost as much as facts do. In recent discussions circulating across the crypto community, there has been growing excitement about statements attributed to Ripple leadership that hint at deeper institutional integration of XRP. Some interpretations suggest that governments could eventually explore or even adopt blockchain-based financial systems where XRP acts as a bridge asset for global settlements. This idea alone has sparked massive debate, as it touches the core of what XRP was originally designed for: fast, efficient cross-border liquidity transfer. But the phrase government adoption is where things start to become extremely sensitive and often misunderstood. To set the record straight within this unfolding narrative, there is no officially verified announcement confirming full-scale global government adoption of XRP. However, what fuels the excitement is Ripple's ongoing engagement with financial institutions, central banks, and regulatory bodies across multiple countries. Over the years, Ripple has positioned itself not just as a crypto company, but as a financial technology bridge aiming to modernize international payment systems. This positioning naturally leads the community to speculate. If banks can adopt Ripple's technology, could governments be next? Or this is where the psychological momentum begins. Investors and enthusiasts start connecting dots between Ripple's partnerships, pilot programs, and the growing global interest in central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The idea emerges that XRP could potentially serve as a neutral liquidity layer between different government-backed digital currencies in the future. While this is not confirmed reality, it is a theory that continues to gain traction because it fits into the broader narrative of financial evolution. Now, when people hear phrases like "Ripple president confirms XRP government adoption," it often spreads rapidly through social media, sometimes without context. In reality, most of these interpretations come from interviews, speeches, or statements that are more forward-looking in nature rather than direct confirmations. Leaders in the blockchain space often speak about possibilities, future integration, and potential use cases, which are then amplified by the community into much larger expectations. This is exactly how speculation turns into viral headlines. At the same time, it is also true that Ripple has been actively working on regulatory compliance and institutional partnerships, which makes it stand out compared to many other crypto projects. This compliance-focused strategy is one of the main reasons XRP continues to be part of serious discussions in financial circles. Governments and financial institutions typically do not engage deeply with technologies that lack regulatory clarity, and Ripple's approach has been to position itself within that acceptable framework. What we are really looking at is not a confirmed announcement of government adoption, but rather a powerful narrative built on Ripple's growing influence in the financial ecosystem. It is a mixture of real progress, strategic partnerships, and community-driven interpretation that creates the illusion of imminent, large-scale adoption. The moment you hear phrases like government integration, Ripple partnerships, and XRP becoming a bridge for global finance, it is easy to assume that everything is already decided and finalized. But in reality, the story behind these narratives is far more complex, layered, and driven by interpretation rather than direct confirmation. What we are witnessing in the XRP ecosystem is not just technological development, but a psychological phenomenon where speculation, institutional activity, and community expectations blend together into a powerful collective belief system. To understand why claims like "Ripple president confirms XRP government adoption" spread so quickly, we need to look at how information travels in the crypto space. Unlike traditional financial markets, crypto is heavily influenced by real-time social media interpretation. A single interview clip, a carefully worded statement, or even a vague comment about future possibilities can be transformed into a global headline within hours. In XRP's case, this effect is amplified because the project already sits at the intersection of finance, regulation, and cross-border payment infrastructure. That naturally attracts attention from both retail investors and institutional observers. Ripple, as a company, has spent years building relationships with financial institutions around the world. These partnerships often involve testing payment corridors, exploring liquidity solutions, and experimenting with blockchain-based settlement systems. While these developments are real, they are not the same as full government adoption. However, in the fast-moving world of online discussions, the distinction between testing technology and adopting technology often becomes blurred. This is where narratives begin to grow beyond their original meaning. Another key factor driving this excitement is the global shift toward digital currencies issued by central banks. Many countries are actively researching or developing their own digital currency frameworks. This creates a natural curiosity within the XRP community. If governments are building digital financial systems, what role could existing blockchain solutions play in that future? Ripple's technology is often discussed in this context because it focuses on liquidity and cross-border settlement efficiency, two areas that are critical in global finance. However, it is important to understand that speculation does not equal confirmation. Even when Ripple executives discuss CBDCs or institutional adoption, they typically speak in terms of potential collaboration, infrastructure support, or interoperability solutions. These are strategic discussions, not declarations of official government usage of XRP as a universal standard. The excitement often comes from interpreting these conversations in the most optimistic way possible. What makes XRP unique in this entire discussion is its positioning. Unlike many cryptocurrencies that focus primarily on decentralization or store of value narratives, XRP is frequently discussed in the context of real-world financial systems. This gives it a different type of visibility. Financial institutions, regulators, and fintech companies all engage with Ripple in some capacity, which creates an environment where expectations naturally grow. When people see consistent institutional engagement, they begin to imagine long-term global integration scenarios. But markets are not driven by imagination alone. They are shaped by regulation, infrastructure readiness, political decisions, and economic incentives. Even if a technology is highly efficient, its adoption at a governmental level requires layers of approval, testing, and alignment with national financial strategies. This is why large-scale financial transformation tends to happen gradually rather than instantly. At the same time, it would also be inaccurate to dismiss the significance of Ripple's progress. The company has positioned itself as one of the most persistent players in the blockchain-based payment sector. Its focus on compliance and real-world utility has kept XRP relevant in discussions that go far beyond retail trading. This is one of the reasons why every statement from Ripple leadership tends to be analyzed so intensely by the crypto community. So what we are really seeing here is a cycle. Ripple continues to expand its institutional presence. The community interprets this expansion as a sign of imminent global adoption. These interpretations fuel excitement and speculation, which in turn increases attention on XRP. That attention then circles back into even more analysis of Ripple's every move. One of the most important things to understand is how deeply interconnected modern finance has become with emerging technologies. When people hear terms like government adoption or global financial integration, it often sounds immediate, almost like a switch that can be flipped overnight. But in reality, financial systems are built on decades of infrastructure, legal frameworks, and institutional trust. Any shift toward blockchain-based settlement systems, including those associated with Ripple and XRP, would require gradual alignment across multiple layers of global finance. Within this context, Ripple's role becomes more about positioning than immediate implementation. The company has consistently focused on building infrastructure that can theoretically support cross-border payments at scale. This includes working with banks, payment providers, and financial institutions to test faster and more efficient settlement mechanisms. These collaborations are often misunderstood by the public as direct signs of adoption, but in reality, they are part of a longer evaluation process that financial systems typically require before any large-scale deployment. What fuels the XRP community's excitement is the idea that Ripple is not just building a product, but potentially laying the foundation for a new financial layer. This layer, in theory, could connect different currencies, institutions, and payment systems through a unified liquidity mechanism. XRP is often positioned in discussions as a potential bridge asset in such a system. This is where imagination begins to expand beyond current reality, because the concept itself is powerful. A single digital asset facilitating instant value transfer across global borders. However, it is important to recognize the difference between technological capability and institutional approval. Just because a system is capable of performing a function does not mean it has been officially integrated into government frameworks. Governments operate under strict regulatory, economic, and political considerations. Any adoption of blockchain-based financial infrastructure would involve extensive testing, compliance checks, and multi-year implementation strategies. At the same time, Ripple's increasing visibility and discussions around central bank digital currencies adds another layer to this narrative. CBDCs represent a major shift in how countries think about money itself. Instead of purely physical cash or traditional banking layers, governments are exploring digital native currencies that can operate with greater efficiency and transparency. Ripple's technology is often mentioned in this space because it offers interoperability solutions that could, in theory, allow different digital currencies to interact seamlessly. This is where interpretation becomes extremely powerful. When the community hears that Ripple is engaging with CBDC-related discussions, it often evolves into the belief that XRP is directly positioned at the center of future global financial systems. While Ripple's involvement in these conversations is real in terms of consultation and technological exploration, the leap from discussion to official adoption is where most misunderstandings occur. Another key factor driving this narrative is the way information spreads in crypto markets. Unlike traditional financial sectors, where announcements are filtered through structured regulatory filings and formal press releases, crypto information often spreads through interviews, clips, social media posts, and community analysis. A single statement taken out of context can quickly become a global headline. Over time, repeated exposure to such interpretations builds a collective belief system within the community, even if official confirmations are not present. This does not mean the excitement around XRP is baseless. In fact, it highlights how strongly the project has positioned itself within real-world financial conversations. Few digital assets maintain this level of institutional relevance over time. Ripple's focus on compliance and enterprise solutions keeps it in ongoing dialogue with serious financial players, which is not something every blockchain project achieves. But as this conversation develops, it becomes essential to separate three things: what is technically possible, what is being explored, and what is officially adopted. These three layers often get merged in public discussion, leading to exaggerated expectations. Understanding this separation is key to interpreting any news related to Ripple and XRP. So far, what we can clearly observe is that Ripple continues to build, expand, and engage with financial institutions globally. The XRP community continues to interpret these developments as signals of larger transformation, and the global financial system continues to slowly explore digital innovation without committing to rapid structural change. The XRP discussion continues to expand across social media, trading communities, and financial commentary circles. One of the most powerful forces shaping perception is not technology itself, but psychology. Markets are often assumed to move purely on fundamentals, yet in reality, emotions, expectations, and collective belief play an equally important role. XRP is a clear example of this dynamic, where every statement linked to Ripple leadership, every partnership announcement, and every regulatory update becomes amplified into something much larger in public interpretation. When people hear phrases connected to institutional adoption or government-level integration, it naturally triggers a strong emotional response. For some, it represents validation of long-held beliefs about XRP's future role in global finance. For others, it creates urgency, fear of missing out, and rapid speculation about price potential. This emotional reaction is not accidental. It is a natural outcome of how narratives are constructed and consumed in fast-moving digital markets. In the XRP ecosystem, this effect is even more pronounced because the asset has been surrounded by years of anticipation. From regulatory battles to evolving use case discussions, XRP has consistently remained in the spotlight. Over time, this has built a kind of narrative tension within the community. Every new development is not viewed in isolation, but instead is interpreted as a potential step toward a much larger outcome. This is why even routine updates from Ripple or related financial discussions can sometimes be interpreted as signs of imminent global transformation. Institutional interest also plays a major role in shaping this perception. When traditional financial entities show engagement with blockchain technology, it signals legitimacy to retail investors. Ripple's focus on banking solutions, cross-border settlements, and liquidity management places it in a unique category compared to many other crypto projects. However, institutional interest does not automatically translate into full-scale adoption. Instead, it often represents exploration, testing, and long-term evaluation of emerging technologies. This distinction is critical, yet often overlooked in public discussions. The leap from testing a technology to global deployment across governments is enormous. It involves regulatory approval, infrastructure upgrades, international coordination, and economic policy alignment. These processes are slow by design because financial systems prioritize stability above innovation speed. As a result, even promising technologies can take years or even decades to reach full integration. Despite this, the XRP narrative continues to grow because of how information is interpreted in real time. A statement about efficiency improvements can become a prediction of financial revolution. A discussion about interoperability can be framed as evidence of global adoption. This transformation of meaning happens not because of misinformation alone, but because audiences actively seek confirmation of their expectations within available information. This is where market psychology becomes extremely important. In speculative environments like crypto, participants are not just reacting to facts, they are also reacting to beliefs about the future. XRP, due to its positioning in cross-border financial discussions, often becomes a focal point for these future-oriented expectations. When enough participants share similar interpretations, the narrative gains momentum, regardless of whether official confirmations exist. At the same time, this environment also creates volatility in sentiment. When expectations are high, even neutral or cautious statements can be perceived as disappointing. Conversely, optimistic interpretations can rapidly inflate excitement levels. This cycle of anticipation and reaction is part of what keeps XRP consistently relevant in market discussions, even during periods of limited official news. It is also important to recognize that Ripple itself operates in a highly regulated and strategically sensitive environment. The company cannot make broad claims about government adoption or global financial restructuring without concrete agreements in place. Instead, its communications are typically measured, focusing on partnerships, technology development, and long-term vision. The gap between corporate language and community interpretation is where most narrative expansion occurs. In this space, speculation becomes a driving force. It fills the gaps between confirmed facts and future possibilities. While speculation can be exciting, it also introduces distortion if not grounded in clear understanding. This is why XRP discussions often oscillate between optimism and skepticism, depending on how information is framed and received. Ripple and the idea of government adoption, it becomes clear that the most important layer in all of this is separating vision from verification. Throughout the crypto space, and especially in XRP discussions, there is a constant tension between what could happen in the future and what has actually been confirmed in the present. This gap is exactly where most of the excitement and most of the confusion tends to form. The idea that XRP could one day play a role in global financial infrastructure is not something that came out of nowhere. It is rooted in Ripple's long-term mission of improving cross-border payments and making global liquidity more efficient. Traditional financial systems rely on multiple intermediaries, delayed settlement processes, and high transaction costs. Ripple's technology proposes a different model, one where value can move quickly and efficiently across borders using blockchain-based infrastructure. In that vision, XRP is often discussed as a potential bridge asset. However, turning that vision into reality at a governmental level is an entirely different challenge. Governments do not adopt financial technologies based on innovation alone. They evaluate systems based on security, regulatory compatibility, economic stability, and geopolitical implications. Even if a technology offers clear efficiency advantages, it must still pass through multiple layers of approval, testing, and integration before it becomes part of official financial infrastructure. This is why claims suggesting confirmed global government adoption of XRP should always be viewed with caution. There is currently no official verified announcement stating that governments have fully adopted XRP as a standardized financial settlement asset. What does exist, however, is ongoing exploration of blockchain technology by governments and financial institutions worldwide. This includes research into central bank digital currencies, cross-border payment modernization, and distributed ledger systems. Ripple's involvement in these conversations is what often fuels speculation, because the company is actively engaging with financial institutions and participating in discussions around CBDCs and payment infrastructure. It naturally becomes part of broader narratives about the future of money, but participation in discussions is not the same as confirmed adoption. It represents influence, not final implementation. At the same time, it would also be inaccurate to dismiss Ripple's position in the financial ecosystem. Few blockchain companies have managed to maintain consistent engagement with regulated financial institutions over such a long period. This is one of the reasons XRP continues to attract attention. It exists in a unique space where traditional finance and emerging technology intersect. That intersection is where expectations grow, because it represents the possibility of large-scale transformation over time. The XRP community plays a significant role in amplifying this narrative. Enthusiasts closely follow every development, interview, and partnership announcement, often interpreting them through a long-term lens of global adoption. This is not unusual in financial markets. Communities naturally build narratives around assets they believe have transformative potential. Over time, these narratives can become powerful drivers of attention and engagement. However, long-term success in financial systems is not determined by narrative strength alone. It is determined by real-world integration, regulatory approval, institutional trust, and sustained utility. These factors take time, coordination, and global alignment. Even the most promising technologies must evolve within these constraints before achieving widespread adoption. So when we step back from the hype, speculation, and interpretation, what remains is a more balanced picture. Ripple is actively working within the financial industry. XRP remains a widely discussed digital asset with strong community interest. Governments are exploring digital currency frameworks. But the bridge between exploration and confirmed global adoption is still under construction, not completed. This is why it is essential for viewers and investors to approach such narratives with a clear mindset. Exciting possibilities can coexist with current realities, but they should not be confused as the same thing. Understanding this distinction is what separates informed analysis from speculation-driven assumptions. Ultimately, the story of XRP is still being written. Whether it evolves into a core component of future financial infrastructure or remains a specialized liquidity solution will depend on years of development, regulation, and institutional collaboration. What is certain today is that interest is high, discussions are active, and the global financial system is slowly moving toward digital transformation. This content is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice, investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any asset, including XRP or any cryptocurrency. Crypto markets are highly volatile and risky. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor before making any investment decisions.